Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax guys. And we are in super hurry-up mode again this week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, last week we went through all of the co-sponsors and all of the pledge signers and all of the FAIRtax marketplace vendors, kind of taking a snapshot of where we stand at the beginning of the year. And now we are back to FAIRtax pledge signer interviews. And we've got one with Jameson Ellis today. He's running out there in Texas District 2. And I said we got about almost 24 minutes of video to fit into a 28-minute program here. So we got to rock and roll here.
Now this guy is in Texas, and this is one of John Gaver's districts that he's working in to get the FAIRtax pledge signed.
Mm-hmm. And actually, Jameson did an interview with John Gaver. We're going to roll that one first. And then I talked to him. This was actually several weeks ago before Christmas. I recorded this interview, but was just now getting around to putting it on. But let's just go ahead and roll these two videos right here. First John's and then our interview with him.
Hello, I'm John Gaver, author of The Rich Don't Pay Tax, or Do They? And I'm sitting here today with Jameson Ellis, who's running for Congress for Texas District 2. He, like me, has been moved over from Texas 8 to Texas 2. And he's here today to sign the FAIRtax candidate pledge. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask, why did you get into the race in the first place? What is your impetus for getting in?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to thank you for reaching out and for giving me the opportunity to learn more about the FAIRtax pledge. And as somebody that believes in Jeffersonian tax principles and would like to see them restored, I'm also a realist. So I also understand that we have to look at where we're at today and how can we optimize where we're at to bring taxes down and make sure that the tax system that we have benefits everybody at every single level. So thank you for the opportunity. So my story actually starts back May 25th of 2020. It's a very significant date for two reasons. One, it's my birthday. Second reason, though, is because that's the day that the George Floyd incident happened. And over the next 60 days, we saw over between 500 and 600 declared riots. Declared riots. Yeah. And over 2,000 law enforcement officers that were injured in the line of duty. And I looked at our government leaders in D.C. Actually looked at government leaders all over the country, and most of them did absolutely nothing. They sat on their butts while others actually encouraged and incited even more violence. So this was about July. We were in the middle of what we call a Blue Crew Live, and we were live on Facebook in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And I feel like I got, not to freak anybody out, but I am a Christian, so I feel like I got a word from the Lord. And he said, Jameson, what's going on with law enforcement right now is a symptom of a much deeper issue. And so in that moment, I felt like I needed to do more. I had to do more. And so I was like, do I run for office? What do I do? I didn't even talk to my wife about it. I'm like, I feel like I need to do something, but is it Congress? Is it local? Like what do I do? 2 weeks later, I get a random message on Facebook from a gal out of Wichita Falls that says, hey, I want to share something with you. Now, I didn't know this lady. So this is probably going to freak some of you out. I didn't know this lady, but she actually reached out to me on Messenger and says, hey, can I share something with you? And I was like, sure. She said, well, I had a dream about you. I'm like, uh-oh. Anyways, so basically she said, you've been, I had a dream about you and I saw you in Congress. And that's been on your heart, hasn't it? And you haven't even told anybody. So she read my mail to me and I'm like, okay, that was confirmation. Well, I started doing some research, right? So I realized that we have 435 voting members of the House. Only 40, or maybe just less than 40, actually have true conservative voting records. And then I looked at Texas. So people say, oh, keep Texas red. Texas ain't red, it's purple. Yeah. Until just a couple of months ago, we've had 36 districts here in Texas. Can any of you guess how many of those districts actually have true conservative representation? Yeah. 13. And that's being nice. And so, everybody's been talking about what happened with the election. Everybody's been talking about, where we're at as a nation and why we're here. And people always want to blame Democrats. They want to blame Democrats. Well, I can tell you this. We're where we're at as a nation, not because of Democrats. And I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that. We're where we are as a nation right now because of Republicans. And I'm going to prove it to you. I fully expect Democrats to act and vote like Democrats. That's never going to change. But I have an issue when you have Republicans like Dan Crenshaw that act and vote like Democrats. But how we got here in District 2 is another story. So I started, and like you said, John, we started off in District 8, and there was some gerrymandering that went on, and all of a sudden, after the redistricting maps were released, turns out the part of Conroe in which I live is District 2. And to be a man of principle, I've always said from the very beginning that I believe that a congressman needs to represent the district that they actually live in.
Yes.
And so once I was redistricted, I made the switch from District 8 to District 2, but I don't like to say that I switched districts. I like to say that the district switched me.
Yes.
And so here we are. We're here today. We had a lot of momentum in District 8, and our momentum has just skyrocketed once we made the switch in District 2 because, we had a lot of voters here, and too, especially East Montgomery County. And so now that we're all in the same district, it's time to fire DC from DC. So
there you go. Well, why? Tell me just some of the things you like about the FAIRtax. You're about to sign the FAIRtax candidate pledge. Tell me what it is about the FAIRtax that you like most.
Well, so first of all, I'm not a believer in direct taxation. I don't like this progressive income tax, and I believe that we're immorally taxed, and I believe we're overtaxed. And so, at first I was like, okay, our founding fathers, what they initially envisioned was more of a flat tax, right? And then whenever you and I got on the phone and we started talking through the FAIRtax, it was I had a little bit of a cognitive dissonance type of moment where I'm like, is there really a better plan than just a straight just a straight flat tax? So anyway, so after I started digging and doing some more research, because it took me a while to finally commit to meeting with you, because I wanted to make sure that I did my research. I wanted to make sure if I'm going to put my name on something, it needs to be, it's going to be 110%, because I don't ever do anything half-cocked.
Yeah, we've been talking for a couple of months now.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I absolutely love is, as a small business owner, okay, the federal government forces me to be a tax collector against my will, because they know that if they go directly to the citizen to collect taxes, the citizen's probably going to vote differently. So instead, what do? They come to us, the small business owners. FAIRtax completely gets rid of that because it does away with an income tax. Instead, it is a sales tax. And I love the fact that it does away with the IRS. I love the fact that no matter what, the max percentage of taxes is 23%, and the only person that's ever going to pay 23%. What is the current tax rate? What is the current going tax rate with the current plan?
The top tax rate is 37%.
37%.
Yes.
So this goes
10%
down to
10% is the lowest, 37%.
So this brings it down to 23%. But the only person that's ever going to pay 23% is an illegal alien, which I believe they need to be deported anyway. We're having an invasion of our southern border, and so we could talk about that another time. But
that might even help them decide to self-deport.
Yeah, but everybody else, they get that prebate because you're only taxed up after the poverty level. So if you're a single mom, you're only making 10, 12 grand a year, and you're a single mom, you have 2 kids, you're not going to pay any taxes. And you get to keep 100% of your paycheck. Something else I like and I want to bring up is that if you're a farmer or you're somebody that doesn't need to go purchase a whole lot, right? If you've got your own seeds and everything else, if you've got everything that you need, you're only ever going to pay, like if you go get gas, you'll pay your taxes at the gas pump, right? If you need to go buy seed, you'll pay your taxes for that. But if you grow your own food, you get to keep 100% of the money that you earn. And to me, that's fair.
Yes.
That's fair.
All right. Well, that's good to know. You're one of the best spoken persons on the FAIRtax that I've talked with among all the various people. A lot of people understand it, but you seem to really have it in your head. So that's good to hear. Well, let's go ahead and get on with signing it here. You print your name, and you can scratch through the area where it says for Senate. Let's see here. Representative for, from here, for the office, scratch through from Senate through or. Just scratch that line right through there. Right. And now you're going to put in your name for the state of Texas, District 2.
I can type a million words a minute, but my handwriting is horrible.
Yeah, right. Mine too. Okay, and then I think we print and sign here. Let's see. That's sign and date, and that's print. So print it there, and then sign and date the next line up.
And what is today? Today is the 6th?
Yeah. Should be. It was the 6th the last time I checked, yeah. And I will witness that in a few moments.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Jameson, for signing the FAIRtax pledge and stepping up. I know when you're running against an incumbent, you need to stand out. And so far, I don't think we're going to see, from what I can tell, we're not going to see the incumbent signing his pledge. I'm still working on him, but I don't think we're going to see that. So that makes you stand out. One of two people in the district.
One last thing I want to say, because I think this is important, especially when we're talking about somebody like Dan Crenshaw. This also eliminates all of the special interest bureaucratic BS. And that's something else that I really like. It disempowers the bureaucrats. It disempowers the crony capitalism. And I love it. And one last thing I want to make sure, because right now we have millions of taxpayers. Okay, that's why the IRS has a lot of work on their hands, because all of the taxes are collected at a state level. That brings it down to how many it was, because you have the states and territories.
I think you've got like 4 territories that actually have
so about 54.
Business.
So that brings it down to 54.
There's 6 territories, but only 4 of them actually have any kind of business relationships or anything going on.
So 54 entities that are now paying the federal government, because it's all handled by the state, which means there's more accountability on the federal government, because the states are supposed to be more powerful than the federal government. The federal government's only role is 2 things: is to protect your God-given liberties and to secure our borders from outside invasion. That's it. And so this empowers the states, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, anyway, thank you for signing the FAIRtax pledge, and we'll get on. This will be aired on FAIRtax Power Radio. I can't tell you exactly when. It'll be a few weeks probably. My name's John Gaver, author of The Rich Don't Pay Tax, here in support of the FAIRtax with congressional candidate Jameson Ellis for Texas District 2. Thank you.
Let's go, Brandon.
And we're happy to be talking today with another FAIRtax candidate pledge signer, another one out in Texas, District 2, Jameson Ellis. Thanks so much for taking time to talk with us today.
No, I definitely appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, listen, I got to tell you, I love the Facebook confirmation story that you told to John Gaver. I don't think anybody I've ever talked to has anything like that. But that's pretty cool. First thing I like to do when I'm talking to somebody about their candidate is get a handle on what the lay of the land is out there, what the race looks like. I know it's a long way out, but the big elephant in the room as far as your race is going is redistricting. Now, is that settled, or is that still subject to some court challenges and still may change?
You know, I mean, that's a great question. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter now because I've already filed in District 2. We actually went yesterday to Austin. Yesterday was a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So we went and we filed yesterday, and I am officially on the ballot. So it doesn't matter now. But, I think that the majority of the contention, if you will, with the redistricting lines is actually going on in Harris County. So I don't know that it's going to impact us up here in Montgomery County. And so I think we're fairly safe.
All right. Now, you're running in a district where there is an incumbent, Dan Crenshaw, seeking re-election. Usually in cases like that, an incumbent congressman does not draw much, if any, opposition from within his own party. That seems to be kind of different in this race. How many of you Republicans are in there now?
As far as I know, there's myself and of course Dan and Martin Etzwap. And so as far as I know, I've got one other person that is also primary in Crenshaw. And I'll just say this about Martin. Martin is such a cool guy, and being a missionary from Uganda, he's really a cool dude. So I don't know if there's anybody else that I would like to primary Dan Crenshaw to partner with, if you will, to primary Dan Crenshaw than Martin Etzwap. He's a really cool cat.
Oh, okay. I want to get to him a bit later, but I want to get a handle on one other thing here before we get here. That's a fairly large field, to run against an incumbent. How much of that is real dissatisfaction with the incumbent, and how much of it is just people that were, officially running in 8 for the open seat getting redistricted over to 2?
Yeah, so the race initially started out with Mike Billand, and Mike Billand, I believe Mike lived in the district, and so he decided to primary Crenshaw. I know both Martin and myself, we were previously in Congressional District 8, and I'm not going to speak for Martin, but for myself, I believe that a congressman needs to run to represent the district in which they live. And so I tell people all the time, I didn't switch districts. The district switched me, and so here we are. Now, as far as dissatisfaction, so you mentioned something, dissatisfaction within the party. So I really don't consider Dan Crenshaw a member of the Republican Party. I believe he's a member of the establishment. He's a globalist. He's a rhino, and I'm not part of the rhino party. I'm what we refer to as a Jeffersonian Republican, and that's one of the reasons why I signed the FAIRtax pledge, because the FAIRtax pledge is the closest thing to Jeffersonian tax principles being restored that I think we can get for the modern era.
All right, well, you may be interested in knowing, I live here in Florida, and I am getting on a fairly regular basis rather desperate sounding campaign solicitation fundraising messages from Crenshaw. A lot of it, though, really is saying, we need to protect this seat from the Democrats more so than I need to fend off a primary challenge. But really, what's the mood on the street down there about Crenshaw?
The majority of people that I speak with are extremely dissatisfied and disappointed. They feel disenfranchised by a party that gave us John McCain in 2008 and gave us Mitt Romney in 2012. After Ron Paul, many of us believe that Ron Paul should have had the nomination, but he got screwed over in 2011. And so now here we are. We have a lot of people that have not wanted to be involved in politics or even vote simply because they feel like their vote doesn't count. And then Trump came onto the scene and completely turned the tables. And I don't mean to compare him to Jesus going into, the temple and flipping tables. That's kind of what I feel like Trump did. And all of a sudden people are waking up. And then we see what happened, in the election in 2020. And, I'm going to watch what I say because I don't want any of your videos to get censored. I've already been censored once for talking about the election. But then we see somebody like Dan Crenshaw, who literally in August in Illinois tells a group of Republicans that they're kidding themselves if they think there was enough voter irregularities, we'll call it, that Trump lost the election illegitimately. So in other words, he's telling people that he truly lost, and so he did not support President Trump. And so there's a lot of people, not just here in Texas, not just in District 2, all over the country that are upset about it. And there's a lot of people that also don't know. And so that's basically what our campaign has been all about, just exposing his voting record. I respect what Crenshaw has done for our country, serving as a Navy SEAL, but I do not respect the decisions that he's made in Congress. And I and many others no longer believe that he supports our Texas and America First values here in Congressional District 2.
Okay, well, I don't know if you saw this or not, but a couple of weeks ago, Bob Scarborough did talk to Martin Etwop, and he mentioned you by name as well and called you my friend. And yes. I thought that was a little bit unusual in a political campaign, but I'm wondering, is there something to be inferred from that? Are people of like minds like you and Martin are just had it up to here with politics as usual, and you're running against the system as much as you're running against the incumbent?
Yes, sir. So the thing I love about Martin is, he is a man of God, and he came over here as a missionary from Uganda. He knows firsthand what it's like to live in a socialist nation. And whenever you hear his story and his reason for running, his inspiration story, if you will, and why he's doing what he's doing, it's because he's got children. He's already lived in a socialist country. He does not want his children to grow up in a socialist country. And so yeah, I mean, Martin and I do consider him a friend, and I think that he is an awesome guy. And like I said earlier, I don't think there's anybody better that I could choose to be my primary partner, if you will. I'm going to call it a frenemy. He's not really an enemy, but I can't think of anybody better to help make sure that we fire Dan Crenshaw, fire DC from DC.
Yeah. So there's no problem at all. If he wins, you'll support him. If you win, he'll support you.
100%.
All right, let me kind of steer this back to the fair tax a bit if I can. It's been in Congress for over 20 years. In those 20 years, you know, there were times when the Republicans were in charge, there were times when the Democrats were in charge, and in those 20 years, the fair tax has not even been given a hearing in committee. So it's clearly something that the swamp rats, if you will, on both sides of the aisle want nothing to do with. Now, are you using the fair tax as an anti-establishment point in your campaign?
Well, I mean, partly, but is that the main reason? No. So again, being someone, so I am what you would consider to be an original intent constitutionalist, and I like to try to be careful in using that terminology because there's been several other elected officials that have also said, "Oh yeah, I'm this," and then later on you find out that they're actually not. And so when I look at what our founding fathers had initially wanted to establish as far as an economic system, it was a free market kind of laissez-faire economic system, and taxation without representation is one out of the, I believe, 22 items that we actually listed as a grievance on why we were fighting for our independence. And so now what we literally have is we have double taxation, we have immoral taxation, we're overly taxed, there's double taxation, there's all of these things. And the fair tax, it took me a minute of talking. Well, I say a minute, it was like 3 months after John had initially reached out to me, because I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 100%. I'm never going to do it half-cocked. And so 3 months after John initially reached out to me and talked to me about the fair tax, I wanted to really make sure that I did my due diligence on, is the fair tax the best representation for the modern era of what the initial of what our founding fathers had initially intended? Because before I was all about a flat tax, and a flat tax because it's fair to everybody. No matter if you make, $5 a year or $5 billion a year, a flat tax is fair all across the board. But once I learned about the fair tax, started to dive into it, I fully realized and came to the conclusion that this is exactly what we need. It's going to abolish the IRS. It's going to make sure that if you live below the poverty level, that you keep all of your money, even what you spend. And then what I love about the way that it's set up is that it's not a direct tax; it is an indirect tax, and you only pay taxes whenever you purchase things. And so that means if you're a farmer, if you're a rancher, and all you need to purchase is very little, it means you keep more of your money. You get to choose how much in taxes you pay based on what you want to consume. And I think that's an amazing concept for sure.
How is that message being received on the campaign trail? What are people that you talk about the fair tax, how do they react to it?
So I'm finding that many people don't even know about the fair tax.
Oh, then we got some work to do.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't even know about the fair tax. Those that have heard about the fair tax, they're kind of like myself, where they just don't know the ins and outs. And I have a background. Part of my background anyway is in training. And so whenever you're training people, whether it's new hires or sales training, you have to find ways to take very complex topics and break them down and compartmentalize them. And in training, we call it chunking. So you have to break it down into easy to digest bits of information so that they can process it, and then use relatable examples so that they can process it even further. And that's basically what I had to do for myself with the fair tax in order to really make it make sense. And then I also think there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance. I think there's this it's too good to be true that this could actually work for Americans. And so I think there's a little bit of that also has to be overcome as well. But every chance that I get whenever I'm on the campaign trail, when I'm talking to people, I try to make sure that they know that, hey, this is the economic system, or this is the tax system that I am fully behind. And so I love using it as a conversation. Then John actually just told me about the calculator, which I went ahead and downloaded to my phone, because that gives a great tangible way to show people that, hey, if you're a family of 3 and you're making $75,000 a year, here's what you can expect to pay in taxes. And then it also shows the percentage, right? Which is awesome. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let me shift gears here for just a second. The IRS has just recently admitted that tax evasion is a $1 trillion a year problem. And the current administration's response to that is, let's double or triple the size of the IRS, put a bunch more auditors in place. Let's get an unprecedented level of spying on people's bank accounts so we can catch these tax cheats. But has anyone ever thought to present the fair tax as an answer to the evasion problem? Our CPA friend Jade Wiley did a paper that said the fair tax would eliminate 95% of tax evasion. I mean, that's almost another $1 trillion in the budget every year without having to do anything else.
Yeah, so I have. So that's one of the things that I realized right off the bat is that the fair tax literally gets rid of the bureaucracy. And what I'm gonna say to that is that it's the bureaucracy and it's the crony capitalism that benefits by the current tax system, the tax evasion, the loopholes, all of that stuff. It is the government. So one of the things I like to ask people all the time is can you name one thing for me that governments ever touched they've made better? And nobody ever can.
Nope, not really.
They literally destroy everything that they touch. And so literally these loopholes and the tax evasion problems and everything else, it's literally a direct result of federal government involvement in every single area of our lives, whether it's healthcare, whether it's in the free market, you name it, whether it's our energy sector, it's our transportation, it's our trucking industry. They literally regulate all of it, even big tech. So a lot of people say we need to regulate big tech, and I disagree, because all you're doing is you're literally taking big government's hand off of one side and putting it on the other. We don't need to regulate them. We need to end the corporate welfare and the subsidies to these bigger companies, and we need to allow the free market to regulate itself. And then the companies that aren't treating their clients, their customers, or their employees well, they should be allowed to fail, while the companies that are doing all of the right stuff should be allowed to succeed. And so that's why I'm against all of the bailouts, all the corporate subsidies. And so the fair tax, I think, would go a long way in solving over 90% of it.
All right. One more thing here. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Not long ago, AFFT President Steve Hayes wrote a chairman's report in which he was somewhat bemoaning the fact that a lot of fair tax co-sponsors, once they get in office, the fair tax just seems to disappear off of their radar. I mean, I'm not going to name them by name, but I can think of a couple of fairly, visible fair tax co-sponsors that have never even mentioned the fair tax in any of their media appearances that I'm aware of anyway. Sounds like that if you win this election, we're going to have somebody who is going to be an active fair tax advocate, correct?
Yes, sir. So that's one of the things that people ask me is, well, what makes you different than every other politician? And my answer is the same. I'm going to do exactly what I say I'm going to do. This entire race for me has been a faith walk every step of the way. The only reason I'm in this race is because I decided that I wanted to count the cost. And I can tell you that over the last week, I've had 3 things happen that have been intended to scare me out of the race. And one of the things that I asked at our Liberty at the Lake event on Saturday is, why does someone like Crenshaw that has $4.6 million cash on hand, why is he so afraid of an itty bitty grassroots candidate like Jameson Ellis? And the truth is, it's because he's not really afraid of me. He's afraid of you.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time in talking to us today. Of course, we being affiliated with a 501c3, we can't really endorse anybody, but we're certainly happy to tell the world that Jameson Ellis supports the fair tax and ask that they consider that when they're deciding who they want to vote for out there. Appreciate your time today.
Oh, appreciate you. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Okay. Pretty interesting dude, don't you think?
Absolutely. And you made a comment, and I kind of echo. I echo the comment that you had. I'm sorry to step all over you.
No, that's what happens when we're doing Zooms.
Yes, it is. It's like a split-second delay like that. Yeah. So you had stated something, and I hadn't thought about it, but people are running against the system as opposed to against candidates, because Jameson Ellis is in the same district that Martin Etwop's in.
Correct.
And they both talk very highly of each other and are very respectful and statesmanlike, which is something that we don't see too often. And I think your assessment is correct about they're running against the system.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to be sure that I got Jameson's opinion on, because it is just not usual at all for candidates to be as cordial to each other as Martin and Jameson have been. But it looks like they're just two players on the same team, and whichever one wins, the other one's going to support them with no problem at all. And
Right.
so I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this. And of course, whichever one wins, if either Martin or Jameson wins, we've got somebody that's committed to supporting the fair tax. So the fair tax wins either way.
Absolutely. And to get the word out and to make a statement about the fair tax, even just to say the word fair tax in any kind of situation, brings about a greater impression of the words. But then people kind of say, well, what's that all about? And then all of a sudden, folks are discovering, more and more people are discovering every day about the fair tax and the benefits.
Yeah, and it would not surprise me if in the next week or two, we have another interview to do, because John Gaver is not done yet. He's actually working 2 districts. They redistricted out there. He was originally, Martin, and Jameson were all originally in District 8. All 3 of them got redistricted over to District 2. So now John is working both sides of that line, 8 and 2. He's got 2 candidates from each district up, and we'll just see how many more he can get.
Absolutely. Like we always say, be John Gaver wherever you are, in whatever city or county you work in or live in. We want to make sure that you're aware that you can go to our website, fairtax.org, and pick up a copy, print out several copies of the Fair Tax Pledge, carry them with you, go to the candidates' meetings, get in front of them, make a special appointment to go talk to them, and help introduce the candidates to the fair tax in your area.
If you can get some still pictures or about 5 or 6 minutes worth of video, send it to us. We'll use that here on Fair Tax Power Radio. And that is going to wrap up this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. Again, thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
Again, we are the Fair Tax guys, reminding you that the fair tax is the only truly fair tax. And once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So what do you need from me to get these taxes collected?
Glad you asked, because there is a fair amount of information you need to be aware of.
That's your tax plan?
Oh, no, this is just the revisions for this year's tax plan. What I need from you is you need to keep track of all of your income, as well as any taxes that you've already paid. Also, any gifts that you received or gifts you've given to churches or charities or individuals throughout the entire year. Do you do any side jobs?
Every now and again.
Great, because there's some more information about that right here. Everything you need to know right here. So just simply compile that, send it in to us. Be careful, make sure there's no mistakes. If we do find mistakes, or maybe we can fine you or, throw you in jail. So you might want to be aware of that.
And what do you need from me?
As an individual, nothing. As a business owner, or if you're doing side jobs, yes, you would have to collect taxes on that, but it's all right here.